Top Bed Talk.
The next presentation is also from a colleague of mine and friend in Southampton, Sandy Jackson, or Alexander Jackson. He's an NIHR ACF and now an NIHR doctoral student with a particular interest in the application of data in the perioperative space. And on that journey has picked up a master's in data science in Scotland, where he's from originally. And he's going to talk specifically about the application of AI in our context in perioperative care. Thanks very much, Sandy.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction, Mike. As Mike says, I'm a clinician and I'm acutely aware that I'm flanked on either side by proper, serious computer scientists, machine learning experts. But I want to try and put this into a bit of clinical context for you and talk you through what the reality is we never stop hearing about, both out there in the real world, as Age has already alluded to. I'm sure you've all heard about ChatGPT. Many of you may have used it. But that revolution is coming to medicine. We hear about it all the time, the revolution in healthcare that's coming from AI. Revolution, revolution, revolution. But no one puts a question mark in the title of their slides unless they intend to try and disprove it in the first 5 minutes. So this is what I think of when I think of a revolution. This is where you overthrow what came before. You reject what happened previously and you replace it with something entirely new. And in the case of the French Revolution, you chop off the heads of everyone that was in charge of the previous system. So for those of you in this room, you might be a little bit worried if the revolution is really coming. But I'm going to argue that it's not a revolution. It's evolution, okay? Because revolution is rejecting what came before and replacing it with something entirely new. Whereas the correct application of artificial intelligence in healthcare is evolutionary. It builds on what we have learned before, and it takes things that step further with an aim of improving things. And actually, just like evolution, there'll be a process of natural selection. Some of these ideas will be good, and they will survive and thrive. Some of these ideas might not be quite so good, and will hopefully quietly die away. Okay? Now, Age has done a great job of summarizing pretty much all you need to know about sort of the AI to start with. But the way I simplify it for my very simple mind is that machine learning and artificial intelligence is excellent at spotting patterns. And those patterns can be really complicated, and medicine's full of patterns. If you can spot a pattern, you can try and make a prediction. And it's that power of prediction that is useful for us in healthcare. Now, in the spirit of not revolutionizing things, I'm going to try and explore the possibilities of AI in perioperative care in quite a traditional way. I'll take you through a patient journey, and we'll do it in preoperative, intraoperative, and postoperative, like any good FRCA candidate would. So, with that being said, I think this quote's already come up this week. A small caveat. I would like you to willingly suspend your disbelief, because I know that just a few days ago, you were sat cursing your computer because it took 45 minutes to load up a simple chest x-ray. And I'm now about to paint you this wonderful utopian vision of a data-enabled future. But just go with me on this journey, because things can get better, and we need to see the potential of these technologies to move forward. So, preoperative. Well, preoperatively, what's the biggest thing that we might apply AI to? Well, it's something we've actually already heard about. I'm going to have to update this slide and put the New Zealand risk score in here that we already heard about this morning. So actually, it's just building on what we've done before. But actually, we're quite good at some of this, as you saw earlier. Predicting mortality with conventional statistical methods is already done, and done quite well. So why do we need artificial intelligence? Well, we can start looking at different outcomes that are maybe harder to detect. And just, again, you've already seen some of these, thankfully, as a prelude. This is from NSQIP. This is SORT. And what you'll see is there's actually relatively few data fields there, which makes it nice and easy for you as a clinician to fill in a timely manner so that the tool actually gets used. But there is more data out there. There are already machine learning tools applied to risk evaluation. The one thing I would caution you, though, is a lot of the machine learning algorithms and tools that have been built out there are still built on essentially the same data as you see here. They are built on relatively conventional data that has already been analysed to death using conventional statistical techniques. And you might see some improvement from machine learning, but that's not where you're going to see the real gains. The real gains is where you start bringing in novel data that cannot be analysed by our conventional methodologies. So what kind of data are we talking about? Well, there is the usual stuff. There's the things you get at your clinic and face-to-face visits. We're not going to stop collecting a patient's age, a patient's ethnicity. We're not going to stop asking about those things. We're still probably going to do things like CPET and other tests. And it was mentioned earlier at the Prehab Congress that actually CPET's an area that is ripe for application of just machine learning in that specific area. We've got breath-to-breath data that is so complicated that to understand it as people, we have to put it on 9 separate graphical plots and try and correlate across them. That to us is quite complicated. Now, we've got good at it, but maybe a computer can do it better and not just look at the AT, but look at everything in the entire breath-to-breath analysis. This is where we start getting into the utopia. The machines will actually talk to each other. Your EPR will actually talk and pull the data out of it and put it into these models. That then liberates you and means that you no longer have to restrict yourself to just the amount of data you can be bothered to enter into the model. The model should be able to pull everything out. And then we start bringing in really novel bits of data. So you may have heard Daniel of Southampton talking about some of the digital tools that we use in Southampton to collect data. Collecting outcome data from patients and engaging with that, but also collecting daily data from them, potentially even using wearable devices. So that patient that tells you they play golf 3 times a week, you can see their activity monitor. When they go and play golf, do they actually walk? What happens to their heart rate? We don't yet know if that data will change our understanding of perioperative risk, but it has the potential to, and I think it's beholden on us to go and answer those questions. You get all that data, you put it into the model. As I just said, it's not as easy as that. It is really difficult. This will take time, but with that model, you can then start to make predictions, and not just predictions about mortality. You can make predictions about functional outcomes, about specific perioperative complications. And I think for me, and this is my own personal bias, I think the patient-centered outcomes and the functional outcomes are really the heart of this, because what I want to do is sit in my clinic and talk to my patients and tell them what their life is actually going to look like after this operation with some degree of certainty. Because I think that shared decision-making process, I normally spend a few minutes to explain that, but I think to an EBPOM audience, I'm on pretty safe ground that shared decision-making is a good thing, and the better data for shared decision-making is a good thing. So that's just one area in the preoperative space where it could be applied, but I'm going to keep moving, and I'm going to look at the intraoperative space. Because this is what it starts coming down to, isn't it? If we're going to trust these algorithms in theatre, can we trust algorithms and computer models with our patients' lives? I mean, look at that. Is there anyone in this room who feels confident in knowing what that's going to spit out at the end of it? Would you trust your patient's life to something like this? Because believe it or not, that's actually a chunk of the maths underlying the Marsh model for propofol TCI pumps. So I would argue you already do rely on algorithms that you can't calculate yourself on the back of a fag packet, unless anyone here is still using the Bristol model for TIVA, in which case, probably do go away and have a look at this. But I just wanted to make that point. And again, this is evolutionary. It's not revolutionary. So, okay, fine. I've made my point. What can I actually look at? And it's basically this. Pick any biological signal you want, and we can look at it and potentially gain an understanding from it. So, for example, EEG. I'm basically thinking of signals that I look at in theatre and sometimes go, not got a clue what that means. You know, I get asked by an enthusiastic medical student or an SHO, oh, what does this mean? And I go, I don't know. So, EEG. I'm aware many of you will use processed EEG monitors, things like BIS, but actually there is potential to make those algorithms more sophisticated, more targeted, and actually also to even predict what that BIS will be in response to different stimuli. ECGs. This is an interesting paper that looked at basically detecting acute MI using a 3-lead ECG. So instead of the alarm that just says ST elevation and you're squinting going, it's probably just high takeoff, what you now have is a machine that is really looking at it in detail and giving you an accurate estimation of whether it thinks something is happening. Now, it's not then going to go on and treat the MI and do everything for you, and you don't have to listen to it, but it might help make your life easier. And then I'm going to spend very little time on this because I think for us we'll do a much better job of discussing some of the things that Edwards have done with their HPI system, and anyone that's worked with it, it's quite spooky the way it sort of knows what's coming down the road. But that has the potential to make, again, our lives that little bit simpler. Now, I'm just going to touch on some of the automated systems that could help you in anaesthesia. I caution this is me going slightly out of AI, but into where AI can be applied to make your lives that bit easier, improve things for your patients. This was a really interesting study in anesthesiology now, a couple of years ago actually, where essentially they're using closed loop systems, they're using computer technologies to do bits of our job more accurately and more consistently, adjusting things an awful lot more often. So basically, there is a closed loop vasopressor that aims to keep your map at a certain level. But as we already heard earlier today, you can't just keep turning up the vasopressor again and again. You need to trigger something else. So if you've got the intelligent systems, it might suggest what you should do. It's this concept of fly-by-wire, where you're not letting the machine do everything for you. You're letting the machine help you do your job and remind you when you've maybe got a bit too stuck into the Sudoku and you haven't noticed that something's changed on the monitor. There's a bit of help for you. I would encourage you to go and read this paper, or actually Top Med Talk do have some really nice talks about this particular one. It's really interesting. It's not pure artificial intelligence as it is, but I think the interplay between the two is really interesting and has the potential to make these closed loop systems more intelligent and more effective. So, now on to the final bit, post-operative. Well, what can we do in the post-operative space? Pretty much the same as we did pre-operatively. Why does risk evaluation stop in your pre-assessment clinic? I have this problem frequently where I stand in the anaesthetic recovery unit at a patient and I try and decide, actually, do they need to go to the high dependency unit, to ITU, or to the ward? And I'm trying to make that decision based on looking at the anaesthetic chart and my best judgment. But why don't I get some help with that? So you use all the same things you had before, everything that was already in the model to do your pre-operative risk assessment. But we've got more data now. We've got every piece of data that was taken while you were in the operating theatre. And we're doing this right now in Southampton. We're pulling every piece of data. We're basically plugging a laptop into the back of our anaesthetic monitors and taking out waveform level data from every variable on that anaesthetic machine, with the idea being that in the long term, you can work out which bits of those variables are useful in predicting things, and can they help you predict outcomes after surgery and guide your care so we can make more efficient use of resources and hopefully deliver better care for our patients. So again, model, prediction. That's the idea anyway. And it doesn't just have to stop in the post-anaesthetic care unit. This can happen around discharge. Actually, would this patient be someone who would benefit from additional rehabilitation, not just prehabilitation? We can target our interventions better if we have a better understanding of risk. Now, this is just a few short areas. It's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, if you like, through what artificial intelligence could do in the perioperative space. But I think what it comes back to is this. It's certainly something I was taught at medical school, that a lot of medicine is pattern recognition, and by seeing more and doing more, you as a clinician will grow. Well, the computers are the same. There is no question there are huge challenges. But if you think out there about patterns that you're trying to spot, it may well be that with the right systems, machine learning and artificial intelligence can help with that, because it's good at recognizing those patterns, okay? It can make our lives easier. If it's going to help you in theatre, if it's going to suggest some things for you, if it's going to make your monitors that bit more accurate, just like the TCI pump has made giving TIVA a heck of a lot easier and safer than it used to be. And I think it can make our patients' experiences better. But I think Edge has already spoken about this. It's not a panacea, okay? This is complicated technology. And again, going back to my earlier point, I think you all probably recognise that most hospitals' systems are not there yet. Not all of you will have an electronic patient record. Many of you that do will know that half of it's not filled out. But this doesn't mean we shouldn't aspire to do better. It's evolution, not revolution. We've got a long way to go, but I'm certainly really excited to be on this journey, and I hope some of you in this room will want to come on that journey with us. So, thank you very much.
Top Med Talk. Thanks for downloading Top Med Talk. Don't forget to subscribe via your podcatcher. Don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And also, don't forget, Top Med Talk is the broadcasting arm of EBPOM, Evidence-Based Perioperative Medicine. We'd love you to find out more about that. If you check out ebpom.org, you can find low prices on some of the conferences we're organising around the world. Many of them are virtual and don't even involve you leaving your own home. Check out ebpom.org now.